On the morning of October 6, 1973, absolute silence covered the desert border posts along the Suez Canal. It was Yom Kippur, the holiest day of the year, and defensive lines operated on skeleton crews. Within hours, that stillness shattered into complete chaos as over 2,000 artillery pieces opened fire simultaneously. The sudden assault caught IDF forces totally unprepared, initiating one of the most devastating conflicts in modern military history. The declassified files of the Agranat Commission reveal that this catastrophe was not caused by a lack of raw information. Intelligence reports had been pouring into command centers for weeks, detailing massive troop movements, air defense deployments, and forward logistics bases across the border. Yet every single warning sign was explained away by senior leaders. The unsealed record proves that the ultimate outcome was caused by a fatal analytical failure. At the heart of this breakdown was a rigid belief known within military intelligence as the concept. Formulated after the victory of 1967, this strategic theory assumed that Egypt would never launch a major war without first acquiring long-range strike aircraft to neutralize opposing air bases. It further assumed Syria would only attack in tandem with Egypt. Because those specific aircraft were not yet operational, top analysts concluded that war was logically impossible. This inflexible doctrine turned into a dangerous filter for incoming news driven by a stubborn, bureaucratic logic. Whenever field commanders submitted urgent reports of enemy tanks lining up along the canal, headquarters labeled them as routine training exercises. The record shows how analytical teams bent every piece of evidence to fit their existing theory. Confirmation bias became an official operational practice, blinding the directorate to the reality unfolding right before their eyes. Along the Suez Canal, Egyptian engineers were visibly clearing paths through massive sand walls using high-pressure water hoses. Forward outposts watched Egyptian soldiers carrying live ammunition and wearing gas masks. Frontline observers cabled urgent updates to central intelligence offices, reporting that these actions went far beyond normal annual drills. The paper trail confirms that field officers repeatedly warned that a major assault was being organized for immediate action. Higher headquarters consistently rejected those field warnings with cold administrative confidence. Senior officers insisted that the troops on the front line were panicking over mere political posturing. The unsealed transcript shows how junior observers were repeatedly told to stand down and trust the superior judgment of central analysts. A dangerous gap opened between the raw truth on the ground and the comfortable theories maintained in Central Command. Director of Military Intelligence Eli Zara held absolute authority over strategic assessments. He convinced key political leaders that the probability of war was extraordinarily low, even as mobilization continued on two fronts. The declassified files document how his supreme confidence silenced internal debate. Anyone who challenged the concept was viewed as overly cautious or lacking strategic vision, effectively suffocating critical disagreement within the command hierarchy. Just 48 hours before the invasion, a high-level covert asset provided an explicit warning. The source confirmed that Egyptian and Syrian forces would attack simultaneously on October 6, 1973. This direct intelligence message landed on top executive desks with undeniable clarity. It was the ultimate test of the system, offering a final chance to mobilize reserves and prepare defensive lines across both key fronts. Even when presented with this direct warning, top leaders hesitated to order full mobilization. Analysts argued that the asset was mistaken or that the enemy was merely trying to provoke an expensive mobilization response. The flawed logic insisted that acting on the warning would cost millions of dollars and create unnecessary panic. The decision-making apparatus chose theoretical logic over immediate physical evidence, sealing the fate of border outposts. At 1400 hours on October 6, 1973, enemy jet fighters swept low over the Sinai Peninsula as thousands of heavy artillery shells pounded defensive positions. Massive Syrian armored divisions rolled across the Golan Heights, outnumbering defending tank crews by 10-1. The peaceful holy day turned into a violent nightmare as overwhelmed border garrisons fought desperately for survival against overwhelming firepower, caught completely off guard by the massive assault. The early hours of the Yom Kippur War brought devastating losses along both fronts. Outnumbered garrisons were surrounded, and armored counterattacks were shattered by modern wire-guided anti-tank missiles. The frontline forces, deprived of early warning, had to trade space and lives for time. The initial intelligence failure turned what should have been a prepared defense into a desperate salvage operation on the brink of total collapse. Across the northern border, Syrian armored columns surged across the Golan Heights, threatening to sweep directly into civilian valleys below. Small groups of tank commanders fought continuous day and night battles against endless waves of enemy armor under heavy fire. Their heroic resistance bought vital hours for reserve units to mobilize, assemble, and rush directly into combat without proper preparation, staging, or complete equipment sets. Inside the underground war rooms in Tel Aviv, shock quickly gave way to severe crisis management. Prime Minister Golda Meir and Defense Minister Moshe Dayan faced a terrifying reality where their entire strategic doctrine had vanished in a single afternoon. Declassified transcripts reveal a room filled with profound tension as leaders realized how completely they had misread the intentions and capabilities of their neighbors. The human price of this analytical mistake was immediate and brutal. Thousands of young soldiers paid for institutional arrogance with their lives in the blistering desert heat and on dusty mountain roads. Weapon systems that were supposed to guarantee quick victory proved vulnerable to new tactics. The nation was forced to endure weeks of heavy combat before pushing back opposing forces and securing a ceasefire. When the guns finally fell silent, public anger erupted across the country. Citizens demanded to know how the military establishment could have been caught completely unaware despite spending vast resources on national security. In late 1973, the government appointed an independent judicial body led by Chief Justice Shimon Agranat to conduct a formal inquiry into the intelligence breakdown and initial military operations. The Agranat Commission embarked on months of rigorous, secret investigations, examining thousands of classified cables, battle logs, and personal testimonies. Their unsealed report pulled back the curtain on the dangerous flaws within the military hierarchy. The findings delivered a devastating critique of institutional overconfidence, exposing how reliance on a single rigid theory had undermined national defense during a period of national peril. The Commission placed primary responsibility on top military figures, including Chief of Staff David Elazar and Intelligence Director Eli Zira. The report found that Zira had acted with unjustifiable self-assurance, ignoring vital warnings and failing to inform political leaders of key field updates. The findings called for the immediate removal of several top officers, setting off a massive shakeup at the highest levels of command. Beyond individual fault, the Agranat report exposed a fundamental flaw in the institutional design of national intelligence. At the time, military intelligence possessed an absolute monopoly on strategic assessments, leaving political leaders with no alternative sources of analysis. The Commission argued that this lack of analytical competition allowed a single flawed doctrine to dominate government policy without any checks or balances. The political consequences were swift, deep, and far-reaching. Although the Agranat report officially cleared Prime Minister Golda Meir and Defense Minister Moshe Dayan of direct operational blame, public faith in their leadership was shattered beyond repair. Intense political pressure, mounting public outrage, and continuous veteran protests forced Golda Meir to resign her position in 1974, marking the dramatic end of an era in national politics. In direct response to the report, the entire national security system underwent a complete structural overhaul. The government created independent research and evaluation departments within both the Foreign Ministry and Mossad to ensure diverse viewpoints and rigorous debate. Never again would a single military agency hold exclusive control over strategic evaluations, establishing an institutional culture of organized skepticism to actively challenge dominant assumptions. The legacy of the 1973 failure serves as a universal warning for intelligence services and decision-makers worldwide. It demonstrates how easily expert institutions can fall victim to groupthink, confirmation bias, and the dangerous belief that an enemy will always act according to a predefined formula. The archival record proves that the most dangerous intelligence failures occur not in secret files, but inside the human mind. Decades later, the unsealed minutes of the Agranat Commission report remain a foundational textbook on strategic failure and organizational psychology. They stand as a lasting monument to the cost of intellectual arrogance in high-stakes governance. The record serves as a permanent reminder that no strategic theory is infallible, and that blind faith in past victories is the surest path to future disaster.